My name is Majda Gama, and I'm your host, one of the hosts this evening. I'm a co-host with Café Muse Literary Salon. Delighted that you're here in person and on Zoom. I see a lot of beloved poets online as well as in the room. Tonight's Café Muse features and celebrates the poetry anthology From the Belly. Poets respond to Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons, Volume 3, Rooms. And here at the Writers Center, we have volumes 1 and 2 for sale. They're excellent. Please pick up a copy while we're waiting for the physical copies of Volume 3 to come out. Tonight, editor Karen Alanier of the 3 volumes will guide the reading. My co-host Luther Jett will close. Now, before I turn the mic over to her, just some housekeeping. I'll ask for phones to be silenced so that we can enjoy the poetry without interruption. Just FYI, our next Café Muse will be January 5th, 2026, here in person at the Writers Center. We will feature the poet Henry Crawford, along with poet and editor Greg McBride. And very exciting to say that we're bringing back the open mic for our in-person salons. So get here early and sign up. We are also very excited about our 2026 program, which we will release the names of our readers very soon, but be sure to register for our newsletter. And save the date, because I can say that in February we will welcome Pulitzer Prize winning poet Diane Seuss to read along with poet Brandel France de Bravo. So again, that'll be in February, and that'll be exclusively on Zoom. It won't be at the Writers Center. Take it away, Karen.
Welcome, everybody. It's really nice to see you here in the flesh. And, welcome to our zoomed-in audience as well. We love you, too, very much. From the Belly, Poets Respond to Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons is a 3-book project. It's based on the 3 sections of Tender Buttons: objects, food, and rooms. As it turns out, Volume 3 has been delayed. It will be out soon. It's just not here this evening. I do have copies of volumes 1 and 2, if you'd like to see a copy of either of these books, and maybe buy one at a substantial discount. They're on the back table. Volume 3 includes the following poets, some of whom are actually here in the room: Kareem James Abu Zaid, Karen Alanier, Natalie Anderson, E.J. Antonio, Ann Becker in the room, Tara Betts, Sheila Black, Tracy Brimhall, Laura Cesarco Eglin, Ellen Aronofsky Cole in the room, Henry Crawford in the room over there, T. de los Reyes, very far away in the Philippines, by the way, Majda Gama in the room, Lee Hinton, W. Luther Jett in the room, Jacqueline Johnson, A.J. Lee, M. Mack in the room, Ed Madden, Nino McGowan, Jenna Nesky, Jean Nordhaus, Lisa Sewell, Jetty Sophronius, Alina Stefanescu, Julie Marie Wade, Fritz Ward, Sandra Yanone, who's in the house on Zoom, I saw that, Catherine E. Young. So the cover art, which is very dramatic and surreal, is by the Brooklyn-based artist Ellen Driscoll. It was a commission from the Whitney Museum of Art. And unfortunately, I didn't bring the picture with me to show you tonight, but trust me, it's really quite dramatic. Okay, now unlike objects and food, which are divided into little poems, the room section is one continuous long poem of 85 stanzas. And these stanzas were divvied up among my friends and colleagues to respond to. Okay, so this reading is showcasing 5 readers tonight: Ann Becker, Ellen Cole, Henry Crawford, M. Mack, and me. And I will read Stein's tender buttoned passages for each responding poet, which will help distinguish Stein from the responding poet. You'll get it once you hear how this works. So I've asked each reader to start with a soundbite of bio and a signature poem, or one that is a particular favorite of that author at this time. And you will learn something more about the poet this way. And to conclude the individual readings, I've also asked these poets to say something about their process in writing the response poem. Our first reader tonight is Ellen Aronofsky Cole. And please come and take the mic, Ellen. I'm eager to hear your poem in person.
There. Can you see me? I'm Ellen Cole, and I'm actually going to look at my bio as I tell it to you. I'm the author of 2 collections of poetry, a full-length collection, Notes from the Dry Country, which was published by Mayapple Press, and Prognosis, which is a chapbook. And that was published in 2011. Notes from the Dry Country was published in 2019. My journal publications include the poems in the Bellevue Literary Review, Ekphrastic Review, Gargoyle, Little Patuxet Review, Potomac Review, Innisfree, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Fledgling, Rag, and New Verse News. My work was featured on Verse Daily and nominated for Best of the Night. My signature poem, which is also a favorite of mine, and it also has resonance with the piece I wrote in response to Gertrude Stein, is To Brian on his 70th birthday. Time nests like a heart in my throat. Even earth stows her treasures in her deepest parts. How will I find you when we have breached this world? A dinosaur was born with an egg tooth, and so is a wren. To be translucent as the membrane that wraps an egg. We were formed of almond cake and honeycomb. You will know me again. I will savor you in the plush couch of my mouth. To unfurl myself before you. See how my body holds your shape. We are old, but there is still desire. To grow soft as the skin, of the very old. I am tender already, but not tender enough. To be more tender still. Thank you. I responded in this project to rooms stanzas 14 to 16, which Karen will now read.
The sister was not a mister. Was this a surprise? It was. The conclusion came when there was no arrangement. All the time that there was a question, there was a decision. Replacing a casual acquaintance with an ordinary daughter does not make a son. It happened in a way that the time was perfect, and there was a growth of a whole dividing time so that there was no mistake. There was no mistake now. For instance, before, when there was a separation, there was waiting. Now, when there is a separation, there is the division between intending and departing. This made no more mixture than there would be if there had been no change. A little sign of an entrance is the one that made it alike. If it were smaller, it was not alike, and it was so much smaller that a table was bigger. A table was much bigger, very much bigger. Changing that made nothing bigger. It did not make anything bigger, littler. It did not hinder wood from not being used as leather. And this was so charming. Harmony is so essential. Is there pleasure when there is a passage? There is when every room is open. Every room is open when there are not four. There were there, and surely there were four. There were two together. There is no resemblance.
My response to this: you set the table for peacock and tea. When you move in, I force my brother out. Only you can type my words, untwist my tongues. I am your keyboard, how you stroke me, tune me. The instrument vibrates under your fingers. Ah, your arrangement of parts. Phrase me, your syllables tingle my palate. My baby, my Babette, how you shape me. I will raise you. I will imitate your former city, quake in upon myself if you depart. The room grows larger, the verdant vine, twin leaves parading into space in pairs, cascades downward until the rug is lost in green. Your feet, so petite, oh my heart, I see the turn of your ankle. When you enter, I stumble into the beginning. I forthwith bar the exit. There will be no leaving. How you charm me. You are no sister. Alice, my ballast. The room, my boon, my boat. The boat, my bed. Come, sailor, we shall take this passage. You float me, you ship's cook, you Café, you gastronomist, you maestro of pleasure, how you roast my root, garlic my scullery, red sauce overflows my parchment heart. Pepper me, burn the wood below the saucer. What tea we brew. The table, satin and laid for you, laid for two. I am persimmon soup and peacock under glass. See my fish, my scales, my sargasso underparts. En festin pour deux. All my rooms are open. Enter here, says the door. Eat me, Alice, says the paper. Drink me, Alice, says the bottle. Alice, you cannot dodge me. Sister, mother, brother, daughter, You are 4, you are 1 equals 2. I ban you from departing. How I love my bands. Tan me, I am your leather. You are my leash. So my process. I wrote this thinking that it was about Gertrude and Alice, although they aren't really mentioned in the stanzas. Also, the assumption that it's a love poem. In many ways, it's also like a dream, a dictation of Gertrude's subconscious. Alice had one brother and grew up in a family of 4. I think the sister is not a mister refers to Alice and also to Gertrude and their mutual attraction. I also thought of Gertrude's brother, who moved out before Alice moved in, although not because Alice was moving in, but for other reasons. The word arrangement that's referred to in the stanzas, I took to signify a marriage contract. The second stanza, which covers perfect time, no mistake, and the dividing of time between former time and now, with separation, waiting, and the division between intending and departing. I interpret this as referring to the relationship between Gertrude and Alice, and Gertrude's fears that Alice may at some time leave her. The entrance in the third stanza I read as both Alice's entrance into Gertrude's home and also their female genitalia. A table that is very much bigger, I read, as a bed. The leather I thought of as a reference to kinky sex, pleasure to sexual pleasure, and passage to both time and a personal journey. And every room open, a reference to orgasm. Her last statement about how there was 4 and now there are 2, and there is no resemblance between how Alice once lived in a family of 4. Now she lives with Gertrude, and her life is completely different. There is no resemblance. So I took some of the words in the stanzas, and I listed them. And I referred to them as I was writing. And words or phrases such as sister, not a mister, entrance as entering the living room and also into a new part of life, arrangement signifying marriage contract, an implication that this relationship was somehow family approved, departing as fear of the beloved leaving, bigger table as a bed, also a ship. And the word pleasure as both sexual pleasure and eating pleasure, passage, a journey to a life change, open, meaning both emotional and physical, and 4 into 2 together. So I wrote those things out. And then I just wanted to have fun with the language, to associate about the images that I used, and to ride the wave of what that conjured. I wanted to be inspired by Stein's diction and get away from narrative writing, which my own writing often is, and to express exuberance, sensuality, and joy. I was influenced also by what I know of Gertrude's life, and that information came from sources other than the poem. So that's what influenced Peacock and Tea. Thank you. Before I leave, I want to tell you that the next reader is Ann Becker, and she will share her reaction to Tender Buttons with you.
So I'm Ann Becker, and I'm the author of 3 books of poems, Human Animal, The Transmutation Notebooks, Poems in the Voices of Charles and Emma Darwin, and The Good Body. I've collaborated with Carl Banner, director of Washington, D.C. Musica Viva, on the Jamie Raskin Oratorio with Nathan Feingold, composer, Carl Banner on piano, and Chris Royal on trumpet. And for 17 years, I was a senior producer of Watershed Tapes of poets reading their own work. So my signature poem and it is very much similar to a lot of the poems I write, but recently I've been branching out and writing lots of different kinds of poems. So this is The Age of Old Women. Maybe it wasn't an accident that humans are the only great ape species in which women live so long past reproductive age. And that was from a story on NPR called Why Grandmothers May Hold the Key to Human Evolution. The Age of Old Women. With the men in our lives falling by the wayside, dropping like flies, we keep moving forward, 1 foot out of bed, 1 out the front door, to the grocery store, the doctor's, to the garden to pluck out weeds, as our flesh sags, our tissues spread, our breasts splay into the space men's bodies emptied out for us, the world now wider, distances greater. But we are still tender. How can we not be? Anyone can touch us and see our skin still rosy, plum, olive, ochre, golden clay, still like it was when we were young, a satin binding holding purple bobbing organs in one body, ours, creases and wrinkles, extra flaps, little pimples raise themselves up. Now veins puff out their blue tunnels just under the surface. Fine, invisible hairs still coat our forearms, cheek, line of the throat. Blood twitches the wrist. We now know at any moment our brains might let go. Dark, hot, might then go cold, wet, then dry. What do they want? Desire still shakes, swollen pink petal threshold and doorframe, the weakest known force in nature, hugging our atoms together, grounding our toes, the ball, the arch, and the heel through a long reach to the earth. The heart stays put in the chest, under the breastbone dome, hot, then cold. A great aridity surrounds it, rouge, cliff red, picked up by the wind and the high desert glittering sand scours it, hoarding, eroding the soft and hard veins. Landscape puckers and broadens, folds, fissures, mesa and canyon, tussock, tumuli. We, the survivors of the great Civil War, we hold our children, or they need to hold us. Known and unthought knowns, vermilion, sanguine, cracked wisdom of the old women. And so I responded to Rooms stanzas 20 to 22, which Karen will now read.
Startling a starving husband is not disagreeable. The reason that nothing is hidden is that there is no suggestion of silence. No song is sad. A lesson is of consequence. Blind and weak and organized and worried and betrothed and resumed and also asked to a fast and always asked to consider and never startled and not at all bloated. This which is no rarer than frequently is not so astonishing when hairbrushing is added. There is quiet. There is certainty. There certainly is. No eyeglasses are rotten, no window is useless, and yet if air will not come in, there is a speech ready. There always is. And there is no dimness, not a bit of it.
And so this poem was my response. It's called Tinderbox. No husband is of consequence. When the starlings disentangle the fuse, the god's daughter hesitates into haste. Fire consumed, fire released, the hearth is happy with smoke. As one by one, red stars starved of light wink out one by one, nothing disappears. A hand is not a man. Volcanoes smile through flesh. Sacrifice is what can't be eaten. The God's share awaits them. Story, extended, defended, is still true. Blink and design and open the limits of satiation. If a mouth stretches out its commas, a whole cow will enter, clean. Each hoof clinks on each tooth. To swallow the horizon, retract the sluggish tongue. The daughter, thought trap, its four slow walls close. Bees bumble, caught in the throat. Spectacle augments sight, never skews it. Brighten the inside out, project what it thrusts, thrush in tandem. Trust what isn't pernicious, what can't be seen. Bridge, perturbation, hanging between mouth and moon. And so this is the process I used to come up with that poem. And I was first introduced to Gertrude Stein in my early 20s when I got the Cadman recording of Stein herself reading her work, and was first struck by the sound of it, the rhythm, the starts and stops, the syntax as opposed to any meaning. It seemed to me in her portrait of Picasso and portrait of Matisse, she wasn't describing how these artists looked, but rather finding word music that gave the sensation of their paintings. So when I got this assignment from Karen, I couldn't be happier. When she suggested we might employ myth in our process, I was even more ready to enjoy myself. And an early phrase, startling a starving husband, was a springboard for my poem. Even though Stein insisted she wasn't domestic, I thought of the Greek goddess Hestia, of hearth, home, and domestic life. And that aphorism, men are like streetcars, they come and go. Putting those elements together, my chief goal was to have fun. I wanted to play with images and ideas, and of course, the sound of the words. So Karen Lanier is our next poet, and she'll be responding to Tender Buttons Rooms as well.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Lalonde Alanier. and I was the first poet published by the WordWorks in 1975, and in 2023 and 2024 and 2026, I am the editor of From the Belly, Poets Respond to Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons, volumes 1, 2, and 3. My signature theme, if you haven't guessed it by now, is Gertrude Stein. And so I have a new poem to present on the following quote from Gertrude Stein. There is no there there. It's been used over and over in recent days by political pundits, and they use it with impunity, and they think, many of them, that if it means anything, it means that Oakland was a terrible place. But they were wrong. No. So I'm going to illuminate that myth. Here we go. What Gertrude Stein said in 1935 to Alice Toklas on the grounds of her childhood home, the house missing. Gertrude declared, there is no there. Simple as that. Hat in her hand, dirty with road dust, Gertrude rented a car in LA, drove and drove and drove to the Bay Area, where both women had their early roots. The Mama of Dada, after her lecture tour, recalled shooting little birds. She and her brother Leo took to the Oakland Hills after their mother died, pulling a wagon with books. We had nothing to say after that. So we killed little birds. And you might have noticed that I was speeding up on some words, and I was doing what Anne knows well about word compression, kind of like the German compound words. So there we go. I was influenced by Anne too, like many of her wonderful students who still, give her lots of credit for all that she has done for them. Anyway, I responded to room stanza number 1, which Majigama will read now for me. Thank you.
Act so that there is no use in a center. A wide action is not a width. A preparation is given to the ones preparing. They do not eat who mention silver and sweet. There was an occupation.
So here's the first response that I wrote to that particular stanza, and I call it No Use in a Center. Was Dido an occupant in her own country? A wide action never aimed at a central point. Aeneas merely a width, unprepared to stay, a measure more than his time. All silver to her sweet sister. Give her a sword, a bed, a fire, then meet her again on the river Styx as she turns hurriedly on her heel. Here is my second response, and I did this on purpose, and I'll explain why. Silver and sweet crosswords. Play it not the one, but the hurt heart, the pimp pump. How else could her father hide detour north, away from older brothers stitching, selling union uniforms, but supporting succession? That occupation that fed. Did he tell them, take your fat lips, unable to speak to utter subject, question, abnegation? Now, regarding my process, it occurred to me that the opening stanzas of Rooms had an undercurrent of myth and storytelling, and I had been reading and discussing the Aeneid with my poetry think tank, a spin-off group from the University of Pennsylvania's ModPo, which is a massive open online course otherwise known as Modern and American Contemporary Poetry. Thus, I responded to the first 10 stanzas of Rooms, processing the story of the Aeneid. After letting my response poem sit for a while, I thought that if I showed it to others with whom I wanted to share this project, because my philosophy is, finally I realized, I came to my sentences. I couldn't answer all of the stanzas alone, because I told everybody you shouldn't go into the Steinian woods alone. You should take all your friends and family. So anyway, I thought to myself, well, if I just show them the Aeneid responses, they might think that they have to write something out of mythology. And I didn't want them to be limited. I wanted them to be expanding out into, creative universe. Therefore, I responded a second time to the same stanzas with interlinked poems drawn from Gertrude Stein's life. In Silver and Sweet Crosswords, I turn the biblical details of Stein's father, unhappily working with his brothers who supported both sides of the American Civil War, into linguistic play, so prevalent in Tender Buttons. And now, to my great pleasure, I introduce and call to the mic M. Mack.
Hi, I'm M. Mack. I'm a trans and disabled poet in Virginia. I use the pronouns they, them, and he, him. I'm an instructional associate professor in English at George Mason University, where I specialize with multilingual writers. I'm the author of Theater of Parts from Sundress Publications, and the chapbooks Mine from Big Lux Books, Imaginary Kansas from Dancing Girl Press, and Traveling from Hyacinth Girl Press. When I was thinking about what poem to represent myself tonight in this context, I thought of this one. I wrote my book, Theater of Parts, during the peak of my interest in Stein's formal play and actual plays. I was writing impossible theater, in which the body fragments and performs, where the body can do anything and then anything else. And this poem was a direct experiment in restarting and trying to transform a narrative on the page as it happens. In between acts, a dramatic fantasy. Act 1, we are in the kitchen cooking up desire. Act 1, when you palm my chest, it is the flat of my desire. Act 1, when you palm my chest, it swells with your desire. Act 2, when you undress me, you discover my armature. Act 2, when you undress me, there is no need for armature. Act 2, when we undress, there are two swollen things on my chest, but you ignore them, you don't ignore them. There is no need for armature. There is no need, there is only need. Act 3, we lay down together, two flat chests together. Act 3, we lie down together, my breasts are in the way. Act 3, we lie down together, our chests are flat together, my breasts are in the way. We push them toward pleasure, we pay them no meaning, no measure. Act 3, our chests made flat together, and we push them toward pleasure. Act 4, if this is an act. Act 4, if this is an act, I am not an actor. Act 4, if I am not an actor, you do not accuse me actress, you do not assume you're actor. Act 4, this is an act where we do not act, where my chest is flat, you pay no mind, my breasts are in your hands. This is an act where these acts can occur, and they do act. Here, we do act. Act 5, when we act together, our bodies do what we do, they follow our cues. The director waves signs and shouts. Act 5, when we act together, we are not actors, we are active, not. Act 5, when we act together, our bodies follow cues, we mime them for pleasure, we play them. So I responded to room, stanzas 67 through 69, which Karen will now read.
This cloud does change with the movements of the moon and the quite narrow suggestion of the building. It does, and then when it is settled and no sounds differ, then comes the moment when cheerfulness is so assured that there is an occasion. A plain lap. Any plain lap shows that sign. It shows that there is not so much extension as there would be if there were more choice in everything. And why complain of more? Why complain of very much more? Why complain at all when it is all arranged that as there is no more opportunity and no more appeal and not even any more clinching, that certainly now some time has come. A window has another spelling. It has F all together. It lacks no more than, and this is rain. This may even be something else. At any rate, there is no dedication in splendor. There is a turn of the stranger.
Degranulation of mast cells and other things. A cell is a cell, is a cell, is a cell. Ion cells, mast, endothelial, glial, barriers to cross and crossings to bear and walls to crumble, my walls crumbling and shored up, always shoring up, purple foggy outreach to another cell, ships on cliffs, Scylla's 6 mouths snapping, a cave as a cell, tall masts snapping under tangles of sails, floating to be swallowed by the other as a cell, everything degranulating. A multibacterial organism, a universe or a planet, a monster with many mouths, a host. I am a living thing who is home to living things. The skin microbiome, the gut microbiome, the oral. Are theirs the little memories in my gut? I try to care for them, feed them, gentle them. I need care and feeding and gentling. I do that too. I want to yell at my doctors, is this all there is? This is as good as it can get. I want to get new doctors. I want to quit doctors. I want to rest. I work too much and not enough. There are always deadlines, like there is always degranulation, more and more and more. Everything leads to more, and more leads to more. We are asked to not ignore the things we see. They will tell us we did not see the things we see. They do tell us. The articles say that explaining the action away is worse than the action itself. A salute. When I used to fit in your lap, when you lay your head in mine, breathing in, your knee injured and you cannot kneel to me, how I want your kiss there and there and there, open mouths waiting. He's defined us all female, sex defined at conception, the sex of a cell. Plot twist. They told us there are only 2 genders, and now they have revealed there was really just one all along. Have they transed themselves? Have they queered gender by defining it? Definition, like the individual crags in a rock face, a mast swaying a ship towards. A mast is almost always guide. They've girled us all. A thrill. I'm really excited to be here and to be part of this project. When Karen first told me about the project, I started really thinking about Gertrude Stein and how she had influenced me as a poet. Before I even got my stanzas, I was planning, right? When I think of the legacy of Stein in my work, I think of controlled repetition and use of fragments, how things shift as they repeat and combine, the blurring of genre and the queering of it. how the body is there for that process, especially for me and queerness and transness and disability. But then mostly for me, there is the paradox of Stein's conservative politics as the large looming part of her legacy. And I wanted to comment on that somehow in my response. I reread Rooms, particularly focusing on my stanzas in their context. I noticed how gender appeared, how race appeared, noticed some stuff that didn't age that well, particularly given her political legacy. So I knew I wanted to refer to our current stuff in my response as a way to try to comment on Stein's politics. I thought that more of Stein's particular named, repeated images would make their way into my response, but the lap is the main one, and the complaint. I was having trouble bringing all of these goals for the response together. At the time, I was really sick. I had been having a huge mast cell activation flare for several months. Mast cells interface with the outside world and influence allergic responses, allergic reactions, and immune responses in a cascading fashion. And suddenly, I realized that I could have cells as my repeating thing. My response ended up being late, so I was still working on the poems in the days after the inauguration and in the first days of the executive orders. So those things made their way in. I had just read Madeline Miller's Circe, and I was curating more feminist myth retellings to spend time with, and so the ships and the monsters led me here, and then all of my individual responses became this one response poem. Thank you very much. Our next and last poet is Henry Crawford.
Okay, so yes, I am Henry Crawford. I am the author of 3 collections of poetry: American Software by C.W. Books in 2017, Binary Planet by the Wordworks in 2020, and in 2024 came Screens by Broadstone Books. And let me also say that I am a proud co-director of this Café Muse salon. The title of my signature poem contains the last words of a convicted man as he was being executed in the state of Texas in 2014. And they asked him, how's he feeling? And he said the title of this poem: "It does kind of burn. Goodbye." He was burning, and he was trying to tell us something. He was on fire, and he was trying to be objective. It burns. And he was trying to let us know that it does burn, that it was burning, and that's what it does. It burns. And he was trying to tell us, I'm on fire. And he was letting us know, it feels like I'm burning. And he was trying to lessen the burning, kind of. So he used the words, kind of. Yes, he was burning, but only kind of, like having kind of a dream, or being kind of awake. Like being kind of happy and feeling kind of blue, like being kind of on fire. And he was kind of saying goodbye. He was trying to tell us something about saying goodbye, and he had this word. And it only takes one word to say goodbye, and he was trying to tell us goodbye. And he was burning, and he was kind of leaving, and he was trying to tell us something. And some of them heard him say, goodbye. Room stanzas 82 to 84, which Karen will now grace us with.
A safe weight is that which, when it pleases, is hanging. A safer weight is one more naughty in a spectacle. The best game is that which is shiny and scratching. Please, peas, and a cracker, and a wretched use of summer. Surprise, the only surprise has no occasion. It is an ingredient And the whole section is one season of pecking, which is petting. And no worse than in the same morning is not the only way to be continuous often.
Thank you very much, Karen. And well, Gertrude Stein published Tender Buttons in 1914, just as Albert Einstein was completing his work on the general theory of relativity. Tender Buttons would go on to show us a revolutionary way of looking at language. And the general theory of relativity would go on to show us a completely revolutionary way of looking at the physical world. And in the room of my imagination, these two 20th century prophets engage in a dialogue in that wretched summer that gave way to World War I, and a century with so much innovation and madness. This is Gertrude and Albert. What season, Mr. Stein, looms and looms away? It is this, Mrs. Stein, time is a way of weighing shape. Yes, Mr. Stein, but what time is that naughty space? It is this, Mrs. Stein, feet without a footing is a feat. Was it, Mr. Stein, just war, that wretched summer, or just war? It is this, Mrs. Stein, numbers are only the bodies of words. But why, Mr. Stein, do these unsurprising fields surprise? It is this, Mrs. Stein, we fought the laws, but the war won. When, Mr. Stein, is the touch of a button a bomb? It is this, Mrs. Stein, a sly stone precisely exploding. What ingredients, Mr. Stein, did we leave at the table? It is this, Mrs. Stein, you, a destroyer of words, and you, Mr. Stein, a destroyer of worlds. And I don't want to talk too much about the process here. To me, Stein, and I have a Stein poem in in all three books, a poem that refers to her. But what she is to me is she's like instant Muse. I can go there, I can open up any page, I can read some of that stuff, and before you know it, it connects immediately with my inspiration. In this case here, it was that phrase she said, a wretched use of summer. And I thought of 1914, and I thought of how that would change the world in such a catastrophic way, and how these two thinkers, Albert Einstein and Gertrude Stein, changed the world before us, and how sometimes great innovation and great war combine together in an odd, coincidental way. That's my process. And I will turn this over to Karen again.
Well, I'm sure there are many questions that could be entertained, but we really don't have time for them, not on this air. So what I'm going to suggest is that our closer, who is Luther Jett, will come and close, and you can stand around the dessert table or the book table, and we can ask questions of each other. And I'm sorry for those of you who are out in Zoom land. You can send your questions to me personally, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen, and all of the poets who read tonight. I want to thank my co-host, Majda Gama. Thanks again to WordWorks founder, Karen Alanier. And additional thanks to Henry Crawford for his technical expertise. To you, our audience in the room, and to you, our audience on the Zoom, and of course, all of the poets. Please join us Monday when we will be online and live here at the Writers Center again, starting at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Our featured readers will be Henry Crawford and Greg McBride. Thank you all. Stay safe. Have a good night. And may all your holidays be bright.